Dear explorers, before reading, you have to pardon me, who live in you for several days because of the creature things. However, unfortunately, I was able to start my challenge reading earlier than before. Therefore, I hope my voice didn't annoy the creatures that much today. For today's segment, I am going to read until the end of this ST3. I appreciate you following me so far. But they didn't devote the whole evening to music. After a while, they played at four figs. Oh, it is good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas, when his mighty founder was a child himself. Stop. There was a fast. A game out of blind man's buff. Of course there was, and I know no more believe. To prove really blind, then I believe he had eyes in his boots. My opinion is that it was a done thing between him and Scrooge's nephew, and that the ghost of Christmas present knew it. The way he went after that plump sister in the lace stocker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature, knocking down the fire irons, tumbling over the chairs, bumping against the piano, smothering himself among the curtains wherever she went. There went he. He always knew where the plump sister was. He wouldn't catch anybody else. If he were hard, could run up against him, as some of them did, on purpose, he would have made a feint of endeavoring to seize you, which would have been an affront to your understanding, and would instantly have settled off in the direction of the plump sister. She often cried out that it wasn't fair, and it really was not. But when at last he called, how, when inspired all her silken drawstrings and her rapid flutterings passed to him, he got a hold into a kind of awareness there was no escape. Then his conduct was the most execrable for his pretending not to know her, his pretending that it was necessary to touch her headdress, and further to assure himself of her identity by pressing a certain ring upon the finger, and a certain chain about the neck, was vile, monstrous. No doubt she told him happy all of it, when another blind man, being in office, they were severely confidential together, behind the curtains. Scrooge's was not one of the blind man's birthday, but was made comfortable with a low chair and a footstool and a snug corner where the ghost and the Scrooge were close behind her, but she joined in full fates and loved her love to admiration with all the letters of the alphabet. Likewise, at the game of how, when, and where, she was very great, and to the secret joy of Scrooge's nephew, Betty her sister followed. Though there were sharp girls too, as Supper could have told you, there might have been 20 people there, young and old, but they all played, and so did Scrooge, wholly forgetting in the interest he had in what was going on, that his voice made no sound in their ears. He sometimes came out with his guess quite loud, and very often guessed quite right too. For the shepherd noodle, best Whitechapel, warranted not to cut in the eye, was not sharper than Scrooge, that has he taken it, and has had to be. The ghost was greatly pleased to find him in this mood, and looked upon him with such a favor that he begged, like a boy to be allowed to stay, and to the ghost departed. But this, the spirit said, could not be done. Here is a new game, said Scrooge. 1.5 hour spirit only once. It was a game called Yes and No, where Scrooge never had to think of something, and the rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no, as the case was. The brisk fire of questioning to which he was exposed, they decided from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London and walked about the streets, and wasn't made sure of, and wasn't led by anybody, and didn't live in a menagerie, and was never caught in the market, and was not a horse, or an ass, or a cow or bull, or a tiger, a dog, or a pig, or a cat, or a bear. At every fresh question that was put to him, his nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter, and was so inexpressively tickled that he was obliged to get up of the sofa and stamp. At last, the plump sister, falling into a similar state, cried out, "I have found it out. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is." "What is it?" cried Fred. "It is your Uncle Scrooge." Which it certainly was. Admiration was the universal sentiment, though some objected that he replied to, "Is it a bear?" Ought to have been yes. Inasmuch as an answer in the negative was sufficient to have diverted their thoughts from Mr. Scrooge. Supposing they had ever had any tendency that way. "He has given us plenty of merriment, I'm sure," said Fred, "and it would be ungrateful not to drink his health. Here is a glass of mulled wine, ready to our hand at the moment, and I say, Uncle Scrooge." "Well, Uncle Scrooge," they cried, "a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man." "Whatever he is," said Scrooge's nephew, "he wouldn't take it from me, but may he have it nevertheless, Uncle Scrooge." Uncle Scrooge had imperceptibly become so gay and light of heart, and he would have pleased the unconscious company in return, and thanked them in an inaudible speech, if the ghost had given him time. But the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last word spoken by his nephew, and he and spirit were again upon their troubles. Much they saw and further went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirit stood beside the sick birds, and they were cheerful on foreign lands, and they were close at home by struggling men, and they were patient in their greater hope by poverty, and it was rich. In almshouse, hospital, and jail, and misery's heavy refuse, where a vain man in his little brief authority had not made fast the door and burned the spirit out. He left his lesson and taught Scrooge his precepts. It was a long night, if it were only a night. But Scrooge had his doubts of this, because the Christmas holidays appeared to be condensed into the space of time they passed together. It was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older clearly older. Scrooge had observed this change, but never spoke of it until they left our children's 12th night party. When looking at the spirit as they stood together in an open place, he noticed that its hair was grey. "Are spirit lives so short?" asked Scrooge. "My life upon this globe is very brief," replied the ghost. "It ends tonight." "Tonight?" cried Scrooge. "Tonight at midnight? Hark! The time is drawing near." The chimes were ringing the 3/4 past 11 at that moment. "Forgive me if I'm not justified in what I ask," said Scrooge, looking intensely at the spirit's robe. "But I see something strange and not belonging to yourself protruding from your skulls. Is it a foot or a claw?" "It might be a claw or the flesh there," responded, was the spirit's sorrowful reply. "Look here." From the foldings of his robe, he brought 2 children, wretched, aghast, frightful, and hideous, miserable. They knelt down at his feet and clung upon the outside of his garment. "Oh, man, look here, look, down here!" exclaimed the ghost. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meager, ragged, scowling, wolfish, but prostrate too in their humanity, where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints. A stale and shriveled hand like that of age had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds, where angels might have sat enthroned, devils loved, and glared out, menacing. No change, no degradation, no prevention of humanity any grade. Through all the mysteries of wonderful creation, was monsters half so horrible and dread? Scrooge started back, appalled, having them shown to him in this way. He tried to say they were fine children, but the words choked themselves, rather than be parties to a lie of such enormous magnitude. "Spirit, are they yours?" Scrooge could not say no more. "They're a man's," said the spirit, looked down upon them. and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. The boy is ignorance, the girl is want. Beware them both, and all their degree, but most of all beware this boy, poor, and his brown eyes see that written which is doom. Unless the writing be erased, then on it cried the spirit, stretching out its hand towards the city. Slander those who tell it ye, imitate for your factious purposes, and make it worse, and bide the end. Have they no refuge or resource? Cried Scrooge. Are there no prisons? Said the spirit, turning on him who the last time with his own words. Are there no workhouses? The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to violate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, behold, a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.